I mean, if I went by what I learned 20 years ago, I wouldn't be here. And so a lot of it is so unspoken when I'm looking, a lot of it, is the translation. Like, okay, they send me a picture of Kim Kardashian. They don't be looking like Kim Kardashian, right?
Black people can't be racist.
All right, so welcome back to Black Behind the Chair. I'm Peppermint Petty.
I'm M-Pad.
And we're also joined this week by Lindsay Leans Left. And M-Pad and I are two Black hairstylists who work on all textures of hair. In cosmetology school, we're taught not to talk about religion, politics, sex, and salaries. But this is what happens when Blackness meets the beauty industry. Please subscribe to our channel. We love respectful discourse. So leave a comment, like this video. It's a free way to support our growth. Now, we're not necessarily a show about politics. However, as Black women, our existence is often politicized. As a result, we often find ourselves either having political discourse or avoiding it behind the chair. So, ladies, give me one word that describes your hair today.
Existing.
Word.
I'm going to go with Sabrina.
Sabrina, okay.
All right.
And mine is easy.
Love it.
I get to throw my bonnet on, and in the morning when I wake up, it's going to look just like this.
That's what mine looks like underneath. So if I can do a switch up anytime.
Okay, so there's so much to get to. Since the last time we got together, the country is literally falling off the bone. It's been 2 weeks since the regime change. And yeah, there's a lot happening. So first of all, welcome, Lindsay Leans Left. I don't remember what TikTok it was that brought you onto my radar. I just remember that you were reading somebody and I was like, yep, I'm going to reach out and see if she'll talk to us.
Hell yeah.
That's a good thing. That's good. I call it a Lindsay lean. A Lindsay lean.
Yes. And then after I reached out, because I didn't know when I reached out to you that you actually are in the beauty industry for a really long time, longer than it looks like you are old. So just kind of tell us a little bit about your tell us about your beauty industry journey, quickly.
So I went to beauty school when I was 16, back when you could just go for a reasonable price. And I spent a lot of time in the beauty industry for my entire career. So I always say 20 years, but it's over 20 years at this point. But let's go ahead and cap it at 20. So I've spent a lot of time in sales, real estate, very passionate about people. And so I bring that to my hair and makeup industry, which I primarily work with brides, special events, and some photography. So it's gone from nails to hair to makeup, really anywhere that I can allow accessibility to the best beauty products and the best service in any industry at any moment, even on TikTok when I'm leaning in on people. They get that too.
Yes. Tell me about, are you working in a salon? Are you working in a suite?
So right now I'm completely freelance, which is incredible because I think generally speaking, I'm going to throw out the term liberation. One of the ways that we often do that is that I think goes overlooked is being our own, running our own business, having our own schedule. That I think is outstandingly revolutionary in itself. So it's very freeing for me to be able to really not have those confines. So I've really excelled really truly working for myself on a freelance environment.
I love that for you. I love that
Amazing.
for you. I have been in the industry for 29 years this year, and I've been self-employed for half of that at this point, which is crazy. Um, but I know exactly what you mean when you talk about liberation and feeling liberated, because I do whatever the hell I want, whenever the
Yep.
hell I want. Like if I
Yeah.
want to, I do. If I don't want to, I don't. And nobody's calling my phone, talking
Nothing.
crazy.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. Okay. So, like I said, there's a lot to get to, and we don't have a ton of time. So, I know that for me, one of the things that I reached out to the two of you about that I really wanted to talk about this week, and I think we're going to expand on it. So, I don't know how closely we're going to follow the outline this week because I feel like maybe there's a lot of meat that we're going to pick here. But two things happened in the last 2 weeks. That made me just I feel like we need to talk about this. So the first thing is there's this guy who, when I was in India, so I still own a salon in Indianapolis. I live in Georgia currently, but I still have a location in Indianapolis. When I was still living in Indianapolis and I had my location in a like a strip mall, this guy came to work with me who was biracial. I knew as soon as I saw him that he was biracial because I feel like we recognize ourselves in other people. So I knew as soon as I saw him that he was biracial. It doesn't matter. I just knew when I saw him that he was biracial. But pretty quickly, I came to understand that our client base saw him as white. They had no idea that he was biracial. So apparently, even though he wasn't white passing to me, he was white passing to our white clientele. We ended up falling so he worked with me for about a year and a half. He left. He tried to come back after that, but the way he left was weird. So I was just like, no, thank you. A couple of years later, we ended up falling out, and he blocked me on my business account. So recently I got an email from him somehow. Like every once in a while, he'll just randomly text me and then pretend like it was an accident. And then recently I got an email that was like allegedly for his client base, but I don't know how my email got into your client base. And it's got like this huge picture of Martin Luther King, and it's all like, why can't we all just get along? And he's like, it's this long, like IG inspirational, message in the email. And at the end of it, he talks about how like he's been like business has been really slow for him, and he just hopes in 2025 that business picks up. So I go to his Instagram account randomly, not randomly, because there's a reason why he blocked me. And like his whole Instagram is like Trumpy. But you sent me this email with Martin Luther King at the top. So that's part one of the story. So like the next day I'm in the salon, and like I said, I work on all textures of hair. So anyone from anywhere can come in the salon on any given day, right? So it was actually a girl that works with me who happens to be white, although she looks Latina, but she swears she's white. And she was having a conversation with her client in her chair. And she was talking about how like traveling and this and that, and like this group of friends that she has, and this one particular friend who happens to be Black, but is just too much because all they do is talk about politics, and it's just too much. Nobody wants to talk about that. But then in the same breath, she talked about how she would like to have a more diverse friend group. And I didn't say anything because M-Pad knows you don't know me from a can of paint, Lindsay, but I have just like signed off from a lot of these conversations because I'm fucking tired. Like I'm just tired, and I don't always have the energy, right, to have these conversations. So I'm listening to her say that she wants diverse friendships, and also that they can't be political. And for me, who doesn't have the option of living a non-political life, I'm just like, girl, go to hell. And so I guess, especially as biracial women, because you guys are living, like, you guys get to see parts of the country that I don't get to see as an unambiguously Black woman. So I was just curious. I know I just laid a whole mouthful on the two of you, but I was just curious on your thoughts on all of that.
Whew.
I'm sorry.
No, I've been the friend that, like, I wouldn't say that I've lost friends because of how I view things or how I say things, but a lot of people know, like, if we are going to be in a public setting and things are going to get political, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. So I hope whoever wants to get political is, like, ready to have me, like, question a lot of their thoughts and opinions on things. I just find that whole statement like why can't you be why can't you talk about it? People's lives are literally, like, at risk here.
Yeah.
So at what point can we talk about it and you'll be
Yeah.
comfortable enough to say something?
Yeah. Well, and, like, I just think, like, it's such a privileged point of view to, like, be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with politics. Because, and I say this all the time, like, to me, what you consider to be politics is actually just me trying to exist peacefully in the world. You know what I mean? You know, we talk about all the time about police and people have whatever their opinions. For me, it's like, fuck the police all day, every day, period.
Mhm.
And there's a reason I feel that way, because I have so many members of my family who have had really scary near-death experiences, no hyperbole, not like
Right.
no hyperbole, with police officers who, whether or not they're upstanding, fine citizens, and they are, like, they are. None of them were breaking the law when they had these experiences. But even if they were breaking the law, like, your job as an officer is to arrest me and take me to jail so that I can have my day in court. That's your job.
That's it.
And so there should be nothing scary about that. And so to me, like, you consider that politics, but I was just driving my car, you know?
Do you feel, Peppermint, that, like, your experience with biracial, I refer to it as Black biracial.
Mhm.
I grew up in a time where there was no other identification, so I've always proudly marked Black. But I recognize there's some nuance, and as things change. But I very much have identified as Black, have lived my life as a Black woman, but understand in today's world it's important to differentiate. So I use the term Black biracial, if that's okay with you guys.
Mhm.
Do you find that your experiences with biracial people are more similar to what you heard from that person in your salon? Or do you find that you've had different, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you find that same sort of, like, she's Mexican, but she's not, but, you know, you're kind of, she's tiptoeing around. Same with the guy you were working with. He's a little ambiguous in a type of way. Like, are you or aren't you? As terms
Yeah.
of politics, have you found that with your biracial female friendships, or kind of been your experience as a Black woman?
Not at all. So for me, and Impact and I have talked about this multiple times. So for me, I always say, whatever you tell me you are, I believe you. So if you tell me that you're Black biracial, that actually says a lot about you. It's very simple, but it tells me a lot about who you are. And so, no, as a general rule, most biracial people that I've interacted with tend to identify as Black biracial. He was actually my first, like, really close contact of someone who was biracial but identified more, I guess, with his white side. Now, part of the back story of that is that he was raised by his grandparents. We're in Indiana. Indiana thinks it's a part of the Confederacy, even though it wasn't. And his grandparents were very raised. Like, literally, Indianapolis, which is where I was located at the time, just integrated in the 80s, late 80s. And so his identification reflected that. But as a rule, no, that hasn't been my experience. That's why I was completely thrown, and that's why he blocked me. Because...
I'm a mouthy a little one, and more so that I'm like very observant. And so I also, I don't know if you know this about me, like my family's from the South, like my white family, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. So like I'm very able to see this from a perspective that is very much like the worst side of what that could be, and then the best side. And so I'm very observant with what I see. And so what I've found for me personally, with me trying to have white friends at this time, that in my life, actually, we'll start with my life, required me to aid and abet racism. I had to choose that if I wanted these friends, I had to be subject to microaggressions. I'm sitting here looking at myself going, how did they ever, like, I'm looking at a middle school pictures. I'm going, how did they have me thinking I wasn't gas, that I wasn't fire? And I'm going, wait a second. So it required me to be the villain of the story, literally, never the Disney princess, never got the guy, right? No one wants to see biracial tears right now. But I think for me in my adult life, I want relationships that have substance and depth and connection and intimacy. And so having someone, so I refuse to be someone's Black friend, first and foremost. And second of all, people wanting to diversify, I would question even what would you want that for if we can't have discussions about politics? You're right. We shouldn't have politics in this space. This should be basic human rights where we're talking about how people should be treated. But it's the cut and run. I call it like, oh, I got to go to yoga, or, oh, I've got to go over here, when it's like, yo, the 14th Amendment was just put on the chopping block, and like, you don't have time to talk about that with me. Like, did it occur to you at all? So I've just recognized that my need for intimacy and love and connection and community does not coincide with people who are willfully checked out. And I talk a lot with my biracial girlfriends about how we do pose harm, and you saw some of that harm with the young man that you worked with, right? We're kind of playing both sides, the MLK. And so in order for me to have those deeper friendships, I've personally decided I just don't associate. That it's very clear, if anybody meets me, I'm a Black woman, that you're not going to see any switcheroo, but also that I just want more. And I think people want to diversify, to siphon, to learn from. I feel like I have tons of friends who just want to learn from you, feel your energy, but they don't actually want to I'm their friend, but they're not mine. And anytime I try to invite like white people into this space, it's like, no. But you can come to my party and you can come, watch the baby and be the life of the party or whatever. But when I'm like, hey, come be involved in my life, it's kind of that, like you said, he blocked you or something. And then,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just saying, I was just adding on, like, it's too much. When it's time to come over and like live on this side, like, it's just too much. I don't want to have to deal with that. And like, it must be nice to be able to just check in and check out when you feel like it, but like, this is real life.
Yeah, it's scary to think that this is real life, but this is real. This is it. Yeah. I don't even know what to say. I don't want to laugh at it because it's so horrifying, but I'm honestly like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I don't know how people can turn a blind eye, but you're right. It's a privilege to be able to do so.
Yeah. So I'm curious, to your point, because you were asking about my experience with biracial people, and I have two children by a man who's biracial, who at the time we were together identified as Black biracial, but now is embarrassingly a Trump supporter and very white, like very white. Very embarrassing. I'm curious, like growing up, and maybe for both of you, because I always hear about the flip side of that is being biracial, that like you never fit in with Black people and you're never Black enough, and you don't fit in with white people because you're not white enough. And like, I guess one, how does that inform who you are today and how you identify today, and how, like, what does that look like in today's world? Because today's world is like nothing we've ever seen to this point.
I feel like as a biracial woman with a white mom, I have always been accepted in Black communities and Black spaces. I haven't had that feeling of like, oh, well, you're too white for us. But I understand like what you were saying earlier, Lindsay Leans left, about like as a biracial woman, like I know where my place is in certain situations, and like when it's okay for me to have like opinions on certain situations. And so yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. I've
Where did
never.
you where did you grow up? And like, was your mom surrounded with Black women? Did she have Black friends? I'd be curious just to hear a little bit more about your
Yeah,
upbringing.
so I'm from West Virginia originally, pretty white area, and I would say probably out of all my family, my mom is probably the most open one. Like she's always dated people outside of her race. She's always had friends outside of her race, and I mean she had gay friends growing up too, so that was like, and even my biological dad is bisexual, so like she's just always been very more open-minded. I'll give her credit than like probably the average white woman. And when she got pregnant with me, I mean, that was an issue in the 90s with her family. No one was really happy about her getting pregnant with a Black man's baby. And they came around, but like now I don't talk to her dad's side of the family because they're all Trumpies. And when all that started, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. If he's gonna be the one that you want to die on this hill for, you can stand alone because I'm not doing it.
Do you feel like it ever made you like, to expound on Peppermint, like what made you question your identity? I was, let's see, I was born in 85. So I don't know how much difference there was between us and like school age. But even my daughter's 12, and I don't see a lot of difference in how she's treated now than when I was treated. So I'm curious, did you have experiences like in school where you felt like, dang, am I white? Like, I don't know. I I never had like, am I white? Because I don't think I could go
Yeah.
like past. But I'm thinking like I was confused why there's like hearing this like, I'd go visit my family and they'd use the N word, but then like other me, they'd be like, oh, you're not that. And I'm like, but I am though. So how can I be, you see what I'm saying? Like this
Hmm.
othering. So I don't know if you experienced any of that or,
Yeah, so I guess I really didn't know, quote unquote, that I was different until I moved to Missouri in the third grade. And because I want to say, even when we lived in West Virginia, like when I went to school, it was pretty diverse. Like I went with a lot of Black students, biracials, Mexicans. And then we moved to Reno, Nevada, which I went to school with a lot of Latinos and Latinas.
Yeah,
So I just kind of blended in. And then in Iowa, we lived in Des Moines, and that was a little more diverse area. So it wasn't until, Missouri, when we moved out to Lincoln County, Missouri, and I was one of 10, and I'm not even that dark.
Right.
And in the 3rd grade, like, I had rumors started about me that I came from like this gang in the city. And I'm not kidding. There was a rumor that I did a drive-by in the 3rd
Really?
grade. Dead
That's
serious.
crazy.
And then I remember, like, I had to do like, those state tests or whatever, and you have to fill in like your race. And I had never had to do that before. And so I want to say maybe I tried to pick both, like white and Black, or one or the other. And like my teacher came over and was like, "Oh no, you're this one." And
Yeah,
like
you have to
put
pick one.
Black. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh." And then, like you said, the microaggression started. I was called the N-word. So like it just kept happening. And I was a senior when Trayvon Martin happened. And that was really like, oh, wow.
Right. My family was like supportive, like where it shifted for me, obviously I knew, but like my Uncle Tim was like, yeah, they were like happy about Trayvon Martin. And he was like, oh, I'm gonna grab I'm gonna walk around and I'm gonna like patrol my neighborhood. And I was like, you know what? We're done. And of course, like he came back with like, because I reached out and I said, hey, as a little girl, this is how I'm feeling, and you would, other me, and he's like, you're just racist against white people, the same thing they do. Just
Wait.
I'm like, okay.
I'm sorry
like,
to
okay.
interrupt you. Hold on. Who are you talking about, Lindsay?
This was my Uncle Tim. Sorry, this was an uncle of mine.
And this is your mom's brother. Okay.
And for me, I'm not even in communication with my mother, because as my children have gotten older, I've really questioned why my mom would put me around those unsafe people. Okay. So I know that there's a lot of discussion about, well, I think the original question was how it shaped my identity. Aside from the obvious confusion, I think it really solidified for me that I had no interest in being associated. And I'm fine to say that I'm white. It's not that, but it's like I don't want to be floated in and out anymore. I don't want to be any of this. And then also, why was I continued to be put in this harm, like directly from my family? And I it's confusing. It's confusing to be the most beautiful, but the least wanted. All of us know this one, to where probably about 2020, I had first started speaking out like during George Floyd and about discrimination. And I was like, I am Black. I am gay. Like this is where I'm at, right? This is where I'm at. I'm not over here. So I do hope one day for some moderation where we can go, oh, okay, there's some biracial people, but for me, it's a very clear line. I am not associated with that. I will not associate you with Trump, like, or be associated. I'm not your friend. I'm not going to coddle you. And that can be a little lonely, but I also feel like I've been very much more able to step into who I am, as opposed to living in that suppressive, like they say my hair was ugly or my feet were big. And I'm literally going, what do you, I'm gorgeous. What are you talking about? Right? Because people say you're beautiful. You're so beautiful, but, and I'm going, make it make sense to me. So I think there was a lot of confusion for me growing up. That's a whole topic for another day, but you got a glimpse of it. But more so that in my adult life, I'm very clear. I will not date somebody if they're like, well, you're not that Black, or no, I'm Black. That's it.
Yeah.
period. And like when I say I am queer, but like if I say I'm gay, it's like, no, don't mince me, nothing. This is who I stand with, and this is who I fight with, and this is who I'm with. Because none of those communities have ever hurt me quite like the other one. So I think that's it, just a little confusion, but I'm like, it feels nice to be able to choose, almost like if you grow up in a religion and then you don't ever get to see any of the others. I got to see it on this like very broad scope to be able to say, nah, I don't want any of that. I want to be here. And so, and it feels very wonderful to feel so welcomed by a community that certainly did not have to extend that, given, you know, what our moms were a part of.
I love that. I love that. So I just want to break in real quick and remind people to, number one, like this video, leave a comment. Dee actually left us a comment that I think that maybe you guys have already answered, that says, how did or does the white side of your family treat you? And I know M-Pad has always been very open about that. And I hope that you got that answer from Lindsay as well. If not, please leave more comments if you need her to elaborate on that. That was actually very helpful for me. And like I said, for me, when I meet biracial people, I think I just assume that you lean towards the more oppressed side unless you tell me something different. And I've never really thought about why I do that before this moment, but as I'm listening to the two of you talk, I think the reason that I thought that is because I know when I meet people who are biracial that I can see that you're biracial. And I assume that white people can see that too, and then they treat you as if you're biracial. But that's just me assuming. Based on the way that I've been treated. You know what I mean? Is there anything you ladies want to add before we move to our Black history facts?
I feel like with my family in particular, I think with my white side, they were like, okay, like our daughter's gonna have this biracial baby. We can love this biracial baby, right? As long as she doesn't turn into them or she doesn't act like them. And that was fine when I was young and impressionable and, didn't really have a grasp on what was going on in the real world. And like I said, when Trayvon Martin for me was like a huge, like, holy shit, things are really fucked up and not everyone is, not everyone loves you. Not everyone is this quote unquote as progressive and, times are different now. No, they're not. A 17-year-old boy was just shot and killed in a neighborhood with Skittles and tea. And you're telling me because he had a hoodie and he looked suspicious? And so when I started to question my white family's like views on race and politics, that's when I became a problem.
Right. I think that they tend to, just in terms of family or white people, they also have this, and I'm noticing a lot in the political climate where we'll talk about Kamala, where they're like, she's not black. So there's a need to want to use us for blackness when it feels appropriate. Oh, I have a black girlfriend. I'm not racist. I have a black niece. I'm a niece. Okay, but then the minute something happens, then it's like, oh, you're not that black. This isn't who you are. And so when I see, this is kind of generally speaking, that biracial people are in this push and pull because no one can understand, or not no one, but white people can't understand why you would choose black. You have this choice. Why would you choose willingly to go this direction? And I've noticed it more now, especially with families. My mom's decided she's a conservative, even though she hid behind progressivism her entire life, using her black children as her black friend. That ultimately what we're faced with as a biracial community with what's going on in the world is what like I said, where do we stand, and how are we going to allow people to, or if we're going to allow people to move in and out of that space, move us in and out at their leisure. Which is why I think we saw so much discourse with Kamala and is she black and da 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 da. It's like biraciality really challenges that. Multicultural, growing up in the South, and then having, South Asian parents, and they cannot grasp that that's how we live. Everybody on here, whether you're biracial or not. So as far as the family experience, I think, what did I say? The legalized interracial marriage was only legalized in 1967. So you're going to see your very first group of legal biracial people really starting to say, look, this is how it is. And if you dislike the Black women community, why did you produce one? Because life will not treat you like you're an other. Those coping mechanisms that a lot of white moms have, victimization, poor me, a lot of hypersexuality, only goes so far for a Black woman. Because we start going, this ain't working, this isn't working. I can cry, nobody cares, right? Like this isn't working for me. So ultimately, you find those communities and you're going, that you want more. So that was my experience where I'm like, I got to find more because this is not working.
100%.
Yeah,
I'm also
support
a
you guys, too.
biracial of the LGBTQ community too. So
I'm like in the non-existent, not done anything for 4 years, so I don't even know what letter I am, but I'm still, plugging along.
Asexual is a part of the community, no?
Yeah, it could be there. It's fluid.
Hey guys, it's me, Peppermint Petty, one half of the dynamic duo that is Black Behind the Chair. First of all, we want to thank you for spending your Sunday evenings with us. Every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can join us for salon things, politics, current events, news, jokey jokes, and more. We just love this little community that we're building of like-minded people, and we just want to say thanks so much for being here with us. We're trying to hit a goal of 500 subscribers by the spring. So if you could do us a quick favor and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, engaging with our comment by liking, sharing, and commenting allows the algorithm to do what it does. Lastly, if you have something to say to us, anything at all, a question about something in the beauty industry, a topic you'd like us to cover, leave us a voice message at 470-713-5905. You can do that anonymously, or leave your social media if you'd like a shout out. And now back to Black Behind the Chair.
Okay. So I know that recently under the new administration, there's been some talk about, a lot of things. First of all, getting rid of DEI. And we'll get to that here shortly. But they're saying that basically Black History Month and Juneteenth are canceled, which I think is hilarious because I never asked your permission to celebrate myself.
I don't even think we asked for any of it to begin with necessarily.
None of it. Nobody asked for any of it. Like, you had your nose in my business, first of all.
And white people are going to be pissed that they're going to have to work on Juneteenth.
Girl.
Because they got that last year off. So,
but those of us of the self-employed persuasion will be doing what we want. But I wanted to share some Black history facts. I don't know if you guys have one, but I definitely have one. Well, I don't know. I guess it's a fact. It's a person to put on your radar. And it's not from the past. I love, all of the George Washington Carver and all of the people from the past. But also, it's important to me to recognize that Black people are making history every day to this day. And so a couple of days ago on TikTok, this kid, I'm not sure how old he is. He's a kid to me because I'm pretty sure I'm old enough to be his mom. But his name is Zeb Powell, Z-E-B, and then Powell, P-O-W-E-L-L. And he is the first Black snowboarder to win gold in X
Oh
Games
yeah.
history. And he's
Okay.
such a badass. Have you seen his videos? He's such a badass.
Yes.
I
So
did see the
good.
video, but I literally just, it's like serendipity because I was like looking and I saw something and then I hopped on here and it must have just like I saw it black, snowboarder. So I
He's
look
so
forward
good.
to seeing it.
He's so good. And he is the reason why they want to get rid of DEI, I'm convinced. Because what happens is you hold us out of things, like you create laws to keep us from participating, or you whatever the reasons are that you keep us from participating in things. But the moment you open the door, even a teeny weeny little crack, we get in and show our entire asses. And that's why you're afraid to let us in, because you know that my husband had on a t-shirt when he went to work yesterday, and he's not self-employed. He works around, and we live in Georgia. He works around a bunch of like really white people. And he had on a t-shirt that said, "Black people are the best at everything." And I just kind of snickered at it as he was walking out the door, because I'm like, it's not, I mean, he's not lying. But I'm like, this is why they try to keep us out of things. But yeah, his name is Zeb Powell, and I just wanted to draw attention to him and say, if you're not following him on TikTok, he does have a TikTok page. Please go and follow him because he's a badass.
They did that with Simone Biles too, right? Like they came up with all these rules saying like, oh, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. And it's like, well, she did it. So.
And even before Simone Biles, and I don't know where the hell I put my phone. I lost my phone, but there's even before Simone, yes, her, and even before her, there's a woman whose name I can't recall because my brain just doesn't work the way it used to. In the, I want to say it was the late 70s, early 80s, who was a figure skater.
Yep. She did the backflip.
And she was doing things that no one else could do, and so they banned it because if we can't do it, you can't do it. And I'll actually go back when I post the final edit of this. I'll make sure to include her name in the final edit of this because I want her to have her shine. What about
I agree
you?
about I agree about the sort of being kept out of spaces, and I think a lot of it is conscious, some of it is subconscious. I think we saw that with the election as well. A lot of the like rhetoric that was said about Kamala was what I've heard my entire life. Like, you're not qualified, you're not good enough, you're not Black. I mean, and so that was all very triggering. But I've experienced things where I actually had a beauty company that had asked for my help on how to make things more DEI. And I have a lot of ideas more in terms of inclusion because I don't like exclusion. I think when you use makeup for Black women, like, well, what kind of makeup is for, like, we all have different shades here. And quite honestly, I mean, as a makeup artist, a lot of white women would wear actually the shade I wear. Even white women could wear any shade because they're not even in the right realm. But
Ariana
trying
Grande.
to explain to them that it's about education, it's actually about education and outreach. And so you would do something maybe along the lines of how makeup tips for mature skin, and then feature different types of women. And when I did this training, I mean, I thought it was outstandingly profound, humbly, but ultimately they want the work. They want your work. They want my color matching ability. They want my labor, but they don't want to lend the voice. And I ended up getting, a type form, like, we're going in a different direction. And I'm thinking, okay, why wouldn't you want me to speak? I feel like it would resonate. I mean, I just, what is this fear? And when we talk about, like, how you're saying they, like, someone comes in and they're better, we've grown up losing. Like, we lose by default. We walk in, we've already lost, and we have to scrape up from the bottom. Now, they've never lost. Parents threw board games and sabotage. And I think when we're talking about female athletes, Serena, Venus, any was it Brittany Grimes?
Mm-hmm.
There's this like masculinity, and we saw it too when they tried to claim that that boxer was transgender. And so anytime there's anything that's better, or someone loses, or they're embarrassed, there's this attack on there's an attack on us that has the same overtones. And then also this very much like, we are going to beat you out of this space. So most of us who have managed to stay in any of these spaces, I don't willingly, like I quit that company. I said, you guys have lost your mind. What you're missing out on is like, you're whatever. That's on you guys. But I think they don't know how to really comprehend that they are not the best. They grew up with the lie that they are. So when somebody comes and challenges that, whether it's beauty, sports, I don't know how cognizant they are. It's not an excuse, but like, why is there this like visceral, shredded apart, take it away, don't let them have it? And you know, that part I'll never understand, nor do I want to. But I imagine it's a much steeper fall coming from being told you're the best at everything than coming like Zeb probably did and had to work harder, 10 times harder, probably needed more community resources. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I don't know him particular, to actually get to this point, and then people are gonna, and I can't, I don't know why that is. I know why. I just can't imagine why someone would want that for another human. To treat someone that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't give them as much credit. I think that they're very clear on why they're doing it. And I just think that they're bullies, like that they know that allowing you that space to speak your mind and speak your truth will resonate with too many people, and then they will no longer have control. It's why they killed all of the leaders throughout Black history, is because they don't want you to resonate with too many people, because then they will no longer have control. And I think they're fully aware of it. And even the people that, I think you said earlier, like that they, even if it's like subconsciously, know, like, I've got to suppress you, because if I don't suppress you, you're going to take over.
Yeah, and it's natural. I think it's a natural thing that happens. I am racial. I wouldn't say racially ambiguous, but I certainly can speak to a lot. Like the current beauty company that I was talking to they're going to Puerto Rico, and I was like, newsflash, like people in Puerto Rico look like this, and you're not. You're not understanding. And I brought up the slave trade, and I mean all these things I'm learning, like, why do these people look like this? And like, you're not reaching. But I think ultimately I would have spoken, and I think we saw that regardless of how you feel about Kamala, she can speak to white women, white men, Black women, everybody, to and that is, I can't think of something more terrifying. And so I do, when I don't, a lot of people think I'm like defending her. It's more that like I witness on big screen what it feels like to want to speak. I'm speaking. Can you hear me? Can you? And watching them just like glaze over, like she's not even there. It's like I felt that feeling. But ultimately, I've come to that conclusion too, where it's like, if you let me speak, your business is going to skyrocket. You are going to be in an amazing place. But are you prepared to watch that happen? And I would say with the election, the answer we got was, for a vast majority, the answer is no.
Immediately no.
Immediately
no. Like overwhelmingly no. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Except they want us to speak or put ourselves out there or be on the front lines. But then we're like, okay, hey, well, what about this? It's like, oh, no. And ultimately, that's why I hope we find the spaces like your podcast here, where we just are speaking and we no longer try to do that, because no one will ever reach the top of whatever their thing is.
Hey, I see you scrolling for a new podcast to follow, and let me recommend you one. I'm M-Pad, one of your co-hosts for Black Behind the Chair. And imagine this, salon gossip so juicy it feels like you're actually in the chair, with pop culture takes that actually make a little sense. And a sprinkle of politics, because I know being a black, queer, fat woman in America is always up for discussion. So, what are you waiting for? Hit play on Black Behind the Chair and join the conversation. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.
Okay, so let's switch gears only ever so slightly because I definitely wanted to touch on we're never going to be able to keep up with every single thing that this administration does because they purposely, like, clearly, I'm not even going to say his name. I'm probably from today forward will refer to him as Mango Mussolini because I just cannot. But they thrive in chaos. Like that's their environment, you know. And I feel like we all know someone who just has to always have like too much happening at one time. But also, and I've mentioned it on this podcast before, there's a book by Naomi Klein called Naomi Klein. It's called Shock Doctrine. And it talks about using chaos and crisis to push through radical changes while the people are just too disoriented to fight back. And so I don't want to even attempt to try to keep up with every single little thing, right? Because it's just too much. But I do want to talk about the DEI thing that they're put the DEI agenda that they're rolling out, and then also I put boycott in a question mark because I feel like every couple of years something happens and we talk about boycotting, and then we can't not like, but I'm gonna miss my show on Netflix. I can't boycott Netflix. And like, what about my coffee? I gotta go to Starbucks, you know. So I definitely wanted to have that conversation. Excuse me. So first of all, I just found it funny that when they say DEI, what they mean is hard ER,
I agree
right?
with
I
that.
feel like that's what they're saying. Like that's the dog whistle. We're saying DEI, and what we mean by DEI is hard ER. But the reality is that I don't personally know a single Black person that got a job because of DEI. Not one. Every Black person that I know that has gotten that type of a job that would require DEI has had to be like, I was raised knowing you have to be 10 times better, 10 times stronger. You have to be like early and you have to stay late and you have to do the most. And you still may not even get the job. And so I think an unintended consequence of all of this is the white women who are being affected, the veterans who are being affected, and not so much the Black people who are being affected. And I'm just curious, like, if either of you have any like immediate thoughts around that.
I did see something and it was talking about how interesting that he's doing all this when like a few weeks ago, I don't know if you guys saw that fact going around that was saying how Black women are the most educated women in the United States. And it's like, oh, and now like we're coming out with all these setbacks to, you know, kind of reverse things. And it's like, how interesting at a time like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that speaks to what you brought up earlier about, and I want to be clear. I don't give them credit or have any, it is what it is. And so that may be some understanding or some empathy. I have empathy for people who were lied to their whole life. We were lied to, they were lied to. That is no excuse. And I don't, when I say give credit, but I do believe some people don't know what's going on necessarily. However, I think this administration does. I think they're first seeking to provoke a reaction from the Black community. I think that's when I look at the antagonistic remarks, the things that they do. even if we look at it on a micro level with our interactions with white people in a smaller capacity, they're looking for that provocation so they can then re-victimize themselves in that moment. And I think that we are so keen to this and so, I mean, we've just built up such a tolerance, like for the way that they treat us. We're like, yeah, okay. And so when people are saying we're resting, we're not doing enough, I think it's because they've used so many things to try to evoke some sort of visceral or upsetting, but it's like, you've called me every name in the book. And so there's not really more you can go from here. But the DEI, not surprising that they're using it, but the smart companies like Costco, I know Olive Garden, like those who keep those initiatives, it's smart for business to the tune of 19 to 35% more income. So no matter how you look at it in capitalism, you are smart to have diversified your workplace. You're going to get more customers. Like there's so many capitalistic reasons. So do I give Costco necessarily a bunch of credit for keeping it? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they're nice people. I'm not sure. But more so, where are you at in business? And why would you not want greater revenue, better company retention? So you'll see, I believe that that's why you'll see these businesses thrive, because it just makes sense. Because you know that DEI came to be, or I don't know the technical when it came, as far as came, because they weren't letting that. And so I can't understand for the life of me why someone wouldn't want it. Just if you were talking dollar bills. I mean, if all you wanted was dollars, what are you doing? So that's why I don't trust this whole business, run it like a business, merit-based. Because let's face it, if it was merit-based, we've lapped them a mile. We've lapped them 100 times over. Despite
if it was
what
merit-based, Donald Trump would not be in office.
I think that's
his entire cabinet is DEI. And it's like what they think, his entire cabinet is what they think DEI is. They think that DEI is like hiring non-white straight men who are not qualified for positions. That's what they think DEI is. And like clearly that's not the case. They're not hiring the garbage man to be a helicopter pilot, right?
Like, yeah, I don't know anybody who's just skated through. I mean, I've certainly been in HR circumstances where which is good if you're in an HR state where like you have to be cautious to fire some people if they're of a protected class, but certainly if they've broken the rules to the tune of however many times they can break it. But it can't just be like, okay, I'm getting rid of this person. Which I think is smart. Again, smart business. I mean, even the people that I work with, like, why treat them horribly? Like, it just seems to make sense, but they think it comes at the expense of, I saw one lady on the news. You guys know Abby, what is her last name? Forgive me. She does like a circle panel, gorgeous news reporter, Abby Reynolds. Anyways, this lady was saying that she thinks it'll come at the expense of her husband. And the tell that I think that we get from that is that they think that anything that is given comes at the expense of someone. And they don't know how to share a space. It gives like, it's not your birthday party, but you still want a present. Like that kid. You know, like that kid that you're like, this is not even your birthday party. And I think Jasmine Crockett nails it every time. And she's someone that's definitely given me a lot of courage to speak up because, I mean, let's look at look at any of us. I mean, I could take any person and go, how is it that we have sustained? We are this resourceful. We make things look good. We pull things together. Like that is so, I think they exchange for money. So they don't understand how it can be done if we didn't do it their way. Again, with the more, like you said, they know what they're doing. They just kind of don't want to admit that it's that way. So therefore, it must be that we're still less than, we're still not capable of. But it's like, your money one day will mean nothing. Can you be in a community? Do you offer, can you do hair? Can you function? So when they say, oh, would you want an immigrant in your house? I'm like, I wouldn't want you, because all you do is talk about money. And at some point, talk about superficiality. I want more. I'm done with the cars, and I want realness. And so this administration, I think, is trying to evoke a reaction within the Black community. And then number two, as far as whatever his name is today, he is that chaotic, but he's also a recluse. So a lot of this, I think, is planned, but I don't want to give him too much credit, because I think he's just a loosey goosey.
Mm-hmm.
And he says one thing here, and he really meant it 5 minutes ago, and he really means the new thing now. But he doesn't have any, he's never had to connect dots. So I think there's a lot of people behind the scenes, but I think as far as he goes, I'm not going to say he's that sharp to be running a solid strategy game on that.
Yeah. No, there's for sure people in his ear. I just randomly was watching an interview. It was Chris Christie who was being interviewed, and Chris Christie is gross in his own way. But he was being, I want to say it was Jon Stewart. So it was Abby Phillips on CNN.
Abby Phillips. I was saying Abby Reynolds. I'm sorry.
Yes, Abby
What
Phillips.
is their last name?
Yes, the D. Thank you, D. But the person was calling Chris Christie out because they're like, basically, like, you were on his side way longer than you should have been, and all of that is true. But Chris Christie's point was that he doesn't know, like, he literally doesn't know much about anything. He knows about chaos. And then it's whoever's in his ear in the moment. And like, just to kind of piggyback up what you were talking about him being loosey-goosey, is that it's whoever is in his ear in the moment that sounds good, right? He has no idea. He doesn't even understand that, like, a lot of the executive orders that he's signed are illegal already. Like, he's just doing whatever. And I think you're right that the intention is to, like, pull reaction out of the Black community. But I think what they have never understood, but now more than ever, is that my life is not necessarily, like, yes, it's intertwined, like, we're all interconnected, right? We're all in this space and we're all interconnected. But also, historically, what's bad for white people is not necessarily bad for Black people. And so while I'm clear that it's going to be really rough for the next however many years, because everybody keeps saying 4 years, but this man has already told us that he has no intention of leaving office. So I'm not holding my breath that he's leaving in 4 years. And I'm not personally going to go and remove him, because I honestly, it's above me now. Okay. But I think that now more than ever, despite how chaotic things are, and despite, like, all of the things that have happened historically, or maybe because of, I think that in general, Black and brown people, so brown people is going to include biracial people, it's going to include everyone who's not white, are becoming more clear about what capitalism, and specifically white capitalism, what that looks like and what that requires. And fewer of us are willing to go along with what's required to keep that standing. And that's what they're really afraid of. That's why they want to make sure that white women have as many babies as possible. That's why, you know what I mean? They are just desperate, and they're acting in desperation. And so my full plan, not my full plan, but part of my plan is just stay out of the way and let them hash it out amongst themselves, because this doesn't really have anything to do with me, to be honest.
I think there hasn't been much material change in my life from the time I started voting. And so the government, I think, has really forced us in positions, even other white people, to make accommodations, i.e. working from home, side jobs, Uber, all of those things to be able to accommodate whatever this, government is doing at the time. And so I know for myself, am very grateful to have positioned myself where I know that I will be okay, i.e. like rich white people get married all the time. They're going to keep doing that. And I'm happy to work with them as lovely as I would ever. I also nanny for a white family. Like I feel like I'm in this space where I may not be married, but I can survive this. And being biracial, I say, like you were saying, M-Pad, that where are we using that space? And if the master calls us into the house, are we there to rob the master, right? Play the little part, take it back outside, or are we there to want to be in that master space? And so I look at that by saying, look, I am going to work within the master space using my privilege that I need to, but remembering that that space will never be for, it's not even for them. They just haven't figured it out yet. They don't even know that and that we don't want that space. I'm like, there's nothing you all have, your fancy cars or this, like you're talking about celebrity. Why do we want to participate in that? We all know what it took for all of those people to get money. And DT, like, right? We have to be as ethical as possible within capitalism, but we still have to live here. And so that's what I task people with, especially biracial people, of saying, hey, what you doing this for? And where are you? How can you make this work? And I think because of our resourcefulness, we will be scathed, but probably not much more, because we never been that less. So we're really like, okay, shoot, eggs is going to be $12. That really sucks. This really sucks. But materially, my life has never, I mean, when Biden was in, people say, well, what did he do for you? I said, I slept better at night. That's enough for me. Okay. That's enough for me. But really, I still got those student loans. Joe. So to me, it's like nothing's really going to change. And also we have that resourcefulness and community. And that's why I think we're not seeing the, it's a baby. We're not seeing that like visceral fear reaction that we're seeing from a lot of white women, where we're like, okay, I was like, okay, Karen, bake the sourdough. Like they're like, we gotta make sourdough bread. And I'm like, yeah, get on that, because I'm gonna need some bread. But understanding too that white people, like I understand, like white people are part of my community, and there are ones that can provide and yeah, if you got sourdough, I'm finna take your sourdough. And that sort of resourcefulness is what I think, why I think we're not getting too off kilter, although it is deeply, I mean, it's the betrayal and the sadness is so deep for me. That's why I'm kind of like, I don't even want to deal with anything. I just want to opt out. Not of life, but like, I don't even want to, but that is the choice that I can make with what brides do I take. I'm not after the money. I just want to survive. So that's my main focus, my main goal. My dad told me, get the money. You're here to get the money. Stay down. Don't get involved. You know where to go. And I think that's the benefit that we have. And I wish that I could share, and I wish that people would listen. But at this point, I don't think I have the extra resources and expenditure to try to really convince anyone at this point. It's, we got to tighten up.
Yeah. What do you guys think about, so because of the DEI rollback, of course, there's been lots of calls to boycott. And like I said, I have seen this over the years many, many times. And I don't remember exactly how many days the Montgomery bus boycott. I wrote it down, but I always take so many notes that it's like overwhelming. But I want to say it was like 370 days or something, about, that the Montgomery bus boycotts lasted, that brought on the Civil Rights Act. So we've been hearing all of these calls for boycotting, but then the moment the boycott like interrupts somebody's flow, then they're like, well, no, I can't do that. So like I saw Tabitha
Brown.
Thank you. Tabitha Brown. And then it was also another woman. Her name is Maya. She's a hairstylist, and she owns a company called The Do. And I'm obsessed with The Do. Like I am obsessed with The Do. And they both came out, along with other people too, with these messages that are basically like, I know you're boycotting Target, but like you have to go in and buy my products. What, if any, thoughts do you guys have around like boycotting Target, except for when it comes to buying Black-owned brands?
You got anything on that M-Pad before I start?
I did delete.
Because
I did delete my Amazon account. That's gonna be like my own little. I was like, you know what? I don't need it. I can go to a source and get that or whatever. Yeah, that's a tough one because like with the Black products that are already in there, do you just let it go bad, or I don't know.
Huh. So when I was referencing earlier about like liberation, and I think that's unique and individual to everyone, but I think some of the like McDonald's boycotts and the Starbucks boycott were actually really motivated and given to us by white adjacent activists. And so I say, first of all, we listen to the collective of the community. Like, what is the plan, right? The plan overwhelmingly is we survive. Girl, if you need your Netflix, your Amazon Prime, I'm gonna start crying. I mean, that's sometimes all I have, and that's fine. That's all I want. I don't want no fancy trips. But for me, I think that part of that liberation for anybody is doing what they are gonna do or want to do or need to do. And so I know that, like we're talking about operating within capitalism, and what it took those Black businesses to get there, which is unfortunate because we're always part of that system. And ideally, we would move to a space where we weren't in it, right? And bring up Malcolm, our own place that we govern, that we wouldn't have even needed a Target if Black Wall Street and things hadn't been taken away, to where we would have our own stores and our own form of Target, if you will. But given that, can you find, in general, like you said, you get rid of Prime. Okay, that's kind of a happy medium. But I don't think we should force suffering. And I realize that taking a TV show is really not that big of a deal, or your products, your hair products that you love. But can we operate within a capitalistic society as ethically as possible in our businesses, as inclusionary? I as a makeup artist, I will seek out, if I don't have the right diversity, I'll seek it out because I know that that's what I want for my business. So can we both, because we can't leave capitalism. And I feel the same way about socialism, communism, right? It's all going to be the same if there's racism. So capitalism is fine if you don't have the racism part. But can you be as ethical as possible? And so does that mean that you boycott Target altogether, or Amazon Prime? Or does that mean that you use it less? Does that mean that you recycle more? Whatever it is, to sort of take yourself out of a system, but we still have to live. And I think that's ultimately what happens with these movements, where it's like, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's like, I view it as a wheel. Okay, we're going to be on this wheel. We don't get off the wheel. So everybody wants this linear, like, okay, we're going to be fine. Nope, it goes like this. I mean, here we are. Like, it's uncanny, the history right now. But how can we be the most ethical and good as possible and survive? And I think that a lot of communities do not want to task themselves with the question, nor do they care to. But typically when there's a boycott, it's like fully expected that Black people do it and that's it. And so I know that this push came more from the Black community, but I'm curious to see how it will come out, because I'm going, is this a white adjacent tactic again to sort of inflict control or pushing someone to participate in something for maybe, I'm not sure, I'm out on the target, but a lot of these boycotts have to do with Black compliance.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I know that I was thinking out
Yeah.
loud, so I'm not sure, but I think that we do the best we can.
Well, and
Yeah.
I was even talking to a friend a few weeks ago because we were talking about this, like just more ways to build like communities and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, like I personally haven't shopped at a Walmart in years. Like I cut them out, years ago. But should I hold the people out in a rural community where all they have is Walmart? Should they be held to the same standard when that's all they have?
Sure.
And so
Right.
when it comes to these boycotts, like you said, yeah, like who can participate and who can't just because of like where they are.
Right. And
Or
I think that there's
disabled people who have to use certain services because they don't have access, or there's a lot of different things. I think for me, I was extremely frustrated with Tabitha Brown because I felt that she was putting her situation above collective liberation. And while I understand that you worked really hard to get like, I understand all of that. And I feel like at this point, it's just a time to pivot and
right.
allow us to support you in a different way. But to expect for us to, I just felt it was very selfish for me. I felt it was selfish, and that you were putting your whatever above the collective liberation. But I agree with both of you in that I think that you have to make the choices that work best for you. I think that under this administration, things are going to get significantly tighter financially for everyone. These tariffs are about to kick in. I need to buy myself a new refrigerator, so I want to go and do that before the tariffs kick in. And so we're going to have to tighten our belts. And as a result of tightening our belts, we're going to have to be more intentional about how we spend money. And so you do that in the way that makes the most sense for you. But to expect for me to go into Target to buy things because your Black owned business, your products are in there, is wild to me. So I don't own any Tabitha Brown products anyway. Nothing against her. I just don't own any anyway. So it's not going to affect me one way or the other. I do shop the Do, and luckily I buy them in some other place besides Target. So I'll continue to get them the way that I've been getting them. But I do think it's important to be intentional about where you spend your money. So like earlier, I think it was on Twitter earlier, and someone has put together a whole like Black Farmers Index where you can go and buy directly from Black farmers. So I saved that link, and I'm going to go back to that and see how I can go about both supporting those businesses and also getting what I need, right? This is going to be more intentional. And I think everybody should just be really clear about being very intentional. If somebody tells you, I think it's Maya Angelou that said, if someone tells you who they are, believe them. So like, there's no law that says that DEI is rolled back. So these companies that have just hopped on the bandwagon and just rolled back DEI initiatives, that's fine. Thank you for letting me know. I'm cool on those companies, period.
Right.
I
I
don't
wasn't like a
care.
huge, yeah.
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. And I don't care what they're selling or who made it. I don't care. I'm good. And as a Black business owner, if I had products in those stores, give me my shit back. I'll figure it
Right.
out. But that's
I
me.
think that's the bigger thing when I'm talking about like removing ourselves from spaces, you know, and creating
Yeah.
those spaces that we get to govern on our own. Um, it may not look like a brick and mortar. And so those of us who've gotten off the track of like what white success, if you want to call it like white success, because it's never enough, right? You get the house and the car and the kids and you go, it's never enough. And so, shoot, there was something you were saying, DEI, the remove, oh, so we don't purchase from anyone. We start working within our community by saying, okay, I told my daughter back in the day, if we were going, they called it Global Groove or something, and we would all get together and dance. If I didn't have a shirt, I call my friend and say, hey girl, I know you wore that shirt last time. Do you have this shirt now? And so really it's about cutting off whoever we can. And in terms of Walmart's, Targets, there's no reason that they can't provide money for their employees. It's atrocious. The Waltons, what they make. I mean, we can look at anything. But if we start going, you know what, I'm going to call Lindsay. I know she's a makeup artist. She probably might have my color. Or, hey, let's actually look. I am guilty of this. I had like so much hair color, but I don't look. I don't start to dig. And I've made it a game with myself where I go, okay, I'm trying to make something. I'm trying to make a set or a scene for my photography. Go look in the garage. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Go
Mhm.
check under the sink. Go see what
Mhm.
you have, because it's not
Mhm.
just about boycotting Target. Like you said, it's about being intentional and then also bringing that resourcefulness. So my, if I could, I'd cut everybody, you know, buy from
Mhm.
who I need to buy from
Mhm.
if I have to buy, and then cut it off. But we do still have to live. So ultimately, sure, boycott them all as much as you can would be my thought, because ultimately, we know that's where it gets them, is the pocketbooks. Like we know. And without our strength, I wish that people would look at DEI as not helping us. I told that to the beauty company. I don't need your help matching Black women. You need my help.
Mhm.
I don't need, you don't see, we're already cool. We already have to deal with you guys. You guys can't share the stage with us. So when people can which they will come to this conclusion, you're lucky we're in your space. You need us in your space. And the minute you cannot see it, they cannot see it as, oh, we're saving them. It's like, no, you want me at your business. But since you don't, allegedly, which is why I think they're trying so hard to hold on to us. Like, let's still all be friends. And so DEI is not for us. And I obviously they don't understand the concept at all. Uh, the white people that were MAGA people. But ultimately, y'all, I think they want us in their space. They just don't
Mhm.
know. They don't know. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, and they do. That's the thing. They want us in their space, but they want to be able to control it. One of the things that drives me the most crazy in the beauty industry, and I think I even mentioned it in a different way last week. I think I said something to the effect of we're gonna see like the most cultural appropriation in support of whiteness than we've ever seen. And like it drives me crazy in the beauty industry because they're using Black women's language all up and through the industry, but like Black women are not welcome. It drives me insane.
That that particular company that I was speaking about, they actually import baobab oil from the tree of life from Africa. So you want to import from Africa, right? And then they want to use, oh, we're South Korean beauty. Where's the Africans? Where's the South Koreans? You
Yeah.
only have white women, a Christian white women at the top of your company, and yet you are importing from the motherland. And so when you talk about appropriating, I'm going, and you don't even have a black looking brown haired person even here. So yeah, you're talking about being intentional. Where's it coming from, and who's using it? Because obviously we've witnessed our stuff be used. You know, women with fake lips get on the memo. I asked them, why did you never feature my face, but you featured my lips? But you'll feature white women with lip filler. So I think that that's an interesting. Sorry, I kind of pivoted that a little bit, but
No, you're
where's it
speaking
coming from?
exactly
Why
the
are you
middle.
using African oil and then not helping African? Like,
But there's no
that's
African
funky to
people
me.
in sight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's a reason. I'm like, you want that tree of life, but the tree of life is not going to keep giving to you if you keep taking from. And I know this, which is why I don't get too upset and I remove myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think with this DEI, I do think it's I think it's a perk of the ears. You perk up and go, okay, what's going on, Target? Do you still go to Target and see diverse people? Right? Like, do you still see it? It's more just kind of like, let's listen up and start paying attention.
Yeah. Well, I'm never going to know because as much as I love me some Target, I'm good on Target.
I don't like shopping. I'm not a shopper, so it works really well for me.
Me
Yeah.
either. But I'm an online shopper, and specifically when I buy gifts, I often go to their website and buy online. But yeah, no. So there's a girl on TikTok that's put together like a list of hundreds of Black businesses. So I'll be gift giving from her list going forward. Like I said, I've got the Black Farmers Index, so I'll be tapping in there. And I mean, I'm in Georgia. Atlanta is right up the road. There's hella Black businesses. I just have to step outside of my comfort zone because I'm like you. I don't really care to shop personally.
I like to buy, but I don't like to shop. I don't want to
Period.
be.
Just take my money. Yeah.
Yeah, if you exactly, or even checking, like I've been checking like Marketplace, you know, to at least like keep it somewhat local to where, you know, like Facebook Marketplace to say like at least I'm keeping this here, and it's extra effort, it's sometimes a little extra drive, but you know, for what it's worth, I think that's, you know, something.
Yes.
I wanted to say, I feel like with the whole conversation, what I've picked up from this, it's all about community, and white people don't have that. They have money and they have power, but they don't have community, and like real community, you know that like money and power aren't it. So yeah, and like as soon as you guys kind of get that through your head, then maybe we can have a discussion. But if it's always going to be like, well, we have to be on top, or we have to do this or do that, like it's not going to happen. So
Yeah, I think that that's part of them admitting that they need us, and that's the hard part. They can't accept that they actually need us in their lives, so therefore it has to maintain this sort of superiority, instead of saying, hey dang, I really need you, and I don't know what to do. Which is why a lot of, like we were talking about, we're taking a break, because it's like, we've told you what to do. I've told white women, when you need social equity, you need to start paying voluntary reparations. You know, if you really want to stick it to the government, right, you would buy me a house. Okay, you're not willing to do that. You're not in that space, because that would mean social equity. And then going back to our original, or one of the originals, is what would social equity mean? It would mean that you're not at the top. So at the end of the day, what are people really willing to do? Which is why I think ultimately, yeah, we take ourselves out of the space if we can, if it's possible. Like you said, if, you know, willingly, I'm like, I'm not friends with you anymore. Nope, I won't take your, you know, I will refuse brides if I think they're a little Trumpy funky. I don't want to be around it. And they can't understand that because they're still chasing the money. And we're just kind of like, well, for me, I make money to survive, but otherwise I'm not trying to chase that dream anymore, I guess. But you did say something about like tightening up. And it has forced me to tighten up with my business, bigger deposits. You know, because to me, I would do anything for free because I mean, like, I love everything that I do. But I'm like, nope, you're going to book it. Nope, this is what my time's worth. And so, another good consequence, a silver lining, if you will, is causing me to say, how much is my time worth? Look at what you provide for a bride. You give them a whole, I'm a whole new bridesmaids, a mom, whatever you need. And what price goes on that. So it's really helped me say, nope, this is my price. The price, my rent's going up, prices are going up. So in some sense, it is creating like forcing us to create a natural boundary that I'm not sure I would have set if it wasn't for the, you know, America's current climate.
Black people can't be racist.
One of the conversations under salon things was around hourly pricing versus a la carte pricing. And with you being in a bridal scenario, that certainly I feel like has to be an hourly pricing versus an a la carte pricing scenario. Am I crazy or?
I mean, you know, I guess I've never looked at it in terms of like hourly versus, you know, I try to look at it, you know, get the information, how much time is it going to take me? How much is this? But I do also pride myself in being like accessible, meaning that not cheap, not
Hmm?
cheap. But as we move forward, like we're talking about with money, I don't believe, especially in the beauty industry. Oh, did you guys see that thing on TikTok that was like the lashing industry is going out because of, you know, the lash extensions and it's just so expensive? I think ultimately we will be have to be more than a service, and most of us already are, right? And so when people spend the money that they have, what would provoke them to spend the money? I'm not saying we overextend ourselves. I'm saying that at the end of the day, I don't want to go somewhere who just ram bam, thank you, ma'am. I want someone, me personally. And I
An
think that that's something
experience.
that we'll already excel at. Like you're saying, you already do all these different textures. That's huge. The fact that I use with different skin tones, I book constantly because you can see yourself when you go to my page. So at the end of it, this whole like, I just think it's going to sort of whittle down to those, I don't know, who care about what they're doing. I have to believe deep down there's something about goodness that is going to pull us through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe I don't know. I'd like to think, but I think that's going to be the difference of the businesses who make it. And then as far
Yeah.
as hourly, I don't know what brought you to talk about that. Are you guys, I mean, more about your services or like was there like a discussion about it?
Well, there wasn't a discussion about it. So on the outline that I pulled you into is just kind of an ongoing, it's a living document, I think is what I told you. So M-Pad and I are always just kind of throwing ideas on the board of like, we know we're talking about these particular things at these particular times, and here's some ideas of some things that we can talk about. And because we're both professional cosmetologists, we always want to talk about, you know, some beauty industry things. I do some coaching that I intend to bring more to the forefront because I'm getting old and my body is like, bitch, it's time to
Yeah,
sit
it's a
down, you
conversation.
know. And so that's something that for me in 2020 is I always approached my business as kind of a free for all, right? Like if you walk in the door, I should service you. Prior to 2020, that was kind of always my approach to my business. And then 2020, even though I was very, I don't even like to use the word woke anymore because, you know, they've appropriated that, but I've been aware, like the family that I was raised in was very pro-black, very all black everything, like my whole life. So I've always been conscious of the world that I lived in. But I was raised in a military family, a very diverse, or a we were in the military, we moved every 2 years, very diverse upbringing. So I approached my business as you walk in the door, I'm supposed to service you. 2020 changed that because now all of a sudden the entire world is having these conversations that we always had when I was growing up was just a normal part of my growing up. But now the entire world is having these conversations and people are very opinionated. And so where in the past I was always very diplomatic, for lack of a better word. So like people can't come in and say things that were questionable, and I would like politely redirect them and then maybe change the subject. But in 2020, all of that kind of came to a head, and I became much more direct, which, you know, had people feeling some type of way, whatever. But it changed the way that I approached my business, and that I understood that I don't have to share space with you just because you want to share space with me. So I had to kind of look at how I would, like, I had to take another look at how I was charging. And
Right.
so
I
I
agree.
moved into an hourly model based on how much is my overhead costing me? How much are these products costing me? How much is the time away from my family costing me? How, you know, like, and now I have to come up with a number that reflects that. And not only that, but well, so as an example, I just stayed late and worked yesterday. I was in the salon until like 6:30 last night, working with a client. I've been doing her hair for a couple of years now. She had an appointment last week and she was sick. And so she texted me because I'm very upfront about, especially again, post 2020, post COVID, there's a lot of things going on. If you're sick, do not come and sit in my chair. Like, do not.
Right.
And so she was sick, so she canceled her appointment. But now she's going to San Diego for work on Monday, and she's got 1.5 inches of roots, you know, that she needs done. So she texted me and says, you know, I'm trying to make this appointment, but I don't see an opening on your book because I use online booking. Like my business is mostly automated. And I don't see an appointment on your books and I need to get in. Do you have any, what did she say? Do you have any overtime? Like, do you have an overtime pricing model? Basically, is what she asked me. Yes, I do. And not only that, but I only want clients who recognize that me working outside of my normal working hours does require you to pay overtime, and I should not have to, you know what I mean? And so I think when we put like hourly versus commission onto the board, it was just like about trying to have that conversation around like, this is your, like, kind of what you were saying earlier, like, yes, I'm trying to make money because I need money to, in a capitalist society.
Yeah,
but also all money isn't good money. Money is not everything. And like,
You go.
sometimes I'm going to say no, and you're just going to have to be okay with that. And if you're
Yeah.
not, that's okay too, but I'm not your stylist.
I think that that's been, I imagine that a lot of people, and I don't know the shades of people, but a lot of people look at the service industry as like, yes, you're supposed to service me. And so I've had people where I said, you know, unfortunately, the tough part of my job, like, this is your wedding, right? This is important to me. I care about your wedding as much as I mean, I can't say as much as you, but sometimes my difficult part is saying, I'm not the stylist for you. I'm not the one for you. And it's not my favorite part of the job, but when we talk about, I used to not be like big into like energetic. I was always pretty straightforward business. I went to a wedding one time. It was so bad vibes. I was helping out someone. It wasn't my client. I was sick the next few days. It was a mess. I can't even get into it. And I'm like, I know when I'm talking to someone who's high maintenance or this or that, like it's going to have an energetic drain. Also, you're talking about getting older. I'm like, I need a massage. Like, I'm your therapist. You know, we're the therapist. I mean, you got tears.
Everything.
And same with like tipping. I would just count on that I would give them a good price. And then I think, you know, and I'm grateful for any tip, but I had to really ask myself, am I leaving here resentful? I'm resentful for the time that I put into this care and love. So I need to make sure that my price reflects all of that. Like you're saying, the extra time, time away from your family, how much downtime. I mean, just the amount of emails with brides. I'm thinking you should have already paid me 2,000 for what I've had to
Hell yeah.
listen to.
Yes.
Uh,
The
but
preparation beforehand. Yes.
everything. So I think that I try to look at it as a whole, but I do consistently probably undervalue myself.
Mhm.
But I have forced myself to say, like, I went up 500. I'm like, I'm gonna go up 500. I'm gonna go up 500. And she goes, okay. And I was like, but since I've done that, I get better bookings, better clients, quicker to book, more reliable, people who want me, who understand, yes, we are a this is a collab, we're collaborating. And I'll say that to photographers. They'll go, well, I want someone to do this and that. I said, I will not come work for you on a hierarchical. We're going to collab the same way we're doing here. We're working together. That's the only way. I can help you with something. You can help me with something. I'm not doing this. You work for, we're working together for you. But since I take that stance, I get more bookings than, you know, I still call my friends and go, oh my God, I just charged them an extra 1,000. Was that the right thing to do? You know, but I'm still learning to posture and say, and I look
Yeah.
at my work, I'm like, dang.
It's worth it. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, having your hair and makeup done, like beauty services, are a luxury. You do not need them to survive. So if you can't afford it, just say that. But
Right.
don't treat me as if you're doing me a favor by hiring me, because I will go home and rub my feet together, baby.
And I wonder how many people have heard that from someone
Yeah.
that either looks like us going, no, I
Mm-mm.
don't think so.
I'm good.
It's probably the first time some of them have heard that, but I don't say no unless I know it's the right thing. But I think I'm not as good at sitting down and being like, what's the overhead? I need to be, but I still overwhelmingly have that imposter, like where I'm like, I shouldn't charge this much. It's not right. But
Yeah.
I'm good. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good. But I think hourly, and I think recognizing that again is part of the liberation by us saying, dang, this is time away from my family. This is, I don't know. I don't know if I had ever looked at it like that prior to this. Like you're getting my whole heart when I'm with you.
Everything. And
and
I
if you can't,
love what I do. I'm grateful to have been in the industry for as long as I have and still be as passionate as I am about it.
yes.
But I can't do it like I did when I was 21 when I entered the industry. My body won't allow that anymore. And I was very hesitant. Like I said, pre 2020, I was very hesitant to be like, no, I'm good. Today, the way that I say no so fast, so fast, no is a complete sentence, and I don't have to, and I don't want to, period.
And I think listening to that, like I wouldn't listen to my gut. You know, just speaking about everything, the way people want to try to talk us out of our gut feeling, you know? And I'm thinking my gut feeling has never been wrong, not one time. And so when I catch myself trying to talk myself, I go, don't do it. And so as far as business goes, that's a change for me because I've always been straightforward, but it's like, no, there is something very energetic that has been asked, especially for Black women, to deny in order for these. You remember when COVID, they were all mad they couldn't get a haircut? And I'm thinking, where are you at? But I think that the more people set those boundaries true to themselves, obviously, the better I feel, the better clients you'll get. And then, or generally will get. And then also, it is also going to keep those people out of our spaces. And so I can't see a lose scenario. You know, I'm not going to gouge, but if I have to mince with you, if someone questions my prices, we're done. If someone want me to rewrite my contract, I said, no, that'll do it. Cause I'm already doing fairness. So there's no thing there, but you want to try to mince with me about my time and you're taking my time trying to mince about it. So I think that part is
Yeah.
good, and we should do more of
Yeah.
that. I'm just
Yeah.
still trying to
I
get better
know.
at it.
I know. I know. I just had a woman a few weeks ago throw a fit because I charged her full price because she called, no showed on the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And she did call me, but she called me 10 minutes after her appointment started, and she was in Florida and I'm in Georgia. So, like, baby, that's a no call, no show. And my policy is that I charge 100%. So she came, and I told her that over the phone, like, I'm going to charge you, and here's how much I'm going to charge you. So she comes back in town like a week later and comes to the salon, and she's throwing a fit, and I'm going to tell all my friends not to come. Good, because I want you to be clear that this is not okay. So if your friends are like you, baby, we're good. They're not welcome here, and please let them know. Absolutely.
And sometimes I want to know, like, where do you get this entitlement from? Why do you think that just because you were on vacation or you forgot your appointment, I shouldn't get paid for the job that we both set up that I was going to do?
I really think, and I don't know, I know you mentioned, Peppermint, you were married. A lot of women and just in general that I find in like photography or art spaces have like us another support income. And so a lot of times, like they'll be like, why do you charge a deposit? Someone doesn't charge us a deposit. And I'm like, okay, you're asking me to keep my day booked. I said, because I still get a deposit. I even have a model where if I have a team coming, that deposit is for them. You cancel, I'm still paying my people because I'm not gonna I'm gonna take my own advice. But I think for them to really like, that's the first time that they've heard, like, you're asking me to take an entire day to make to just and potentially not get paid. I'm not doing, like, unfortunately I'm not doing that. But I think maybe in the past when things weren't as tight financially, maybe we wouldn't have because we weren't, but it's like, guys, are you not seeing the grocery prices? Are you not seeing that? Where are you
Right.
at? Like, to go,
I
okay,
keep
this is
saying,
someone's
like,
livelihood.
yes. I swear that it's like they think, oh, because we're hairstylists, that we get like a special price on like our mortgage and groceries. I don't know. But like
I have a
I don't know.
question for you guys, like, like, do you feel, because I feel this way, that people think that what we do is some little like glitter princess party
Mhm,
where we just get to twirl around and
mhm,
and to where it's like you're not getting what it takes to do what we do. And I think that is part of the capitalistic structure, that therefore, because we're not degree, I have a degree, not that it
mhm.
matters, but like, we're not this, we're just little flu whatever, that somehow we don't deserve to be treated like you would your doctor. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
do you guys feel that?
Absolutely.
100%.
Like, we're just sort
100%.
of like miscellaneous, and it's like,
Yep.
no,
Absolutely.
you paid your
Like just because
photographer. Oh, go ahead.
no, I mean, you're right. I think that because we're allowed to like have purple hair and tattoos and like wear whatever we want and it's fun and we're listening to music and we're like whatever, that, oh, well, you guys enjoy what you do. So it's just like, yeah, no, totally. People don't take us seriously. I talk all the time about how when I first started doing hair, I was on a college campus for like the first 7 years of my career. And people would always come in and go, oh, so what are you going to school for? I'm like, I already went to school.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done. I graduated. Like, this is what I'm doing. But it's like people don't think we're educated. And like all of that is fine. All of that is fine. But this service is not something that's keeping you alive. This is not, this is a luxury service. And so if you don't want a luxury service, that's fine. Move out of the way because there's people behind you trying to get in my chair. That's
And a
No,
all
lot
I'm
you're
of us
right.
saying.
had to have more training than the cops, and people have no problem giving them raises all the fucking time.
Yep.
I
That
agree
part.
with that. Yeah. And that
That
it's
part.
I mean, if I went by what I learned 20 years ago, I wouldn't be here. And so a lot of it is so unspoken when I'm looking, a lot of it, is the translation. Like, okay, they send me a picture of Kim Kardashian. They don't be looking like Kim Kardashian,
Girl.
right? But I'm sitting here going, how can I make your skin? So they'll say things like, oh, it's like just a trim. They'll be like, oh, it's just natural. And I'm like, well, that's where I'm going to spend the time on. I'm going to match every area. Like, this isn't just makeup. Like, this is a science for me. This is
An art.
Color
yeah,
theory.
everything. But I do feel that sometimes. And then, yeah, that they're doing me a favor. And ideally, I'd like it for us to be mutual. And for the most part, I try to do anything in that nature, like collaborative. Like, you have to trust my expertise in this, and I will trust your expertise. But yeah, I haven't thought about the retirement plan, but
Girl.
I just got to keep trucking.
Yeah. I love this. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I can't believe it, but we have already reached like our time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'll get you there.
I have had
I
such a
loved
good
it.
time. Yes.
Yeah, I had a great time. It felt very, when we're talking about energetically, like very reciprocal, because a lot of times that's why I don't go live on TikTok a lot, because it's like, is this going to be a drain, or is this going to be a reciprocation of energy? Is this a siphoning of my knowledge, or is it an exchange? And while the world is telling us do this, do this, do this, I think focusing on those types of interactions are these little things that get overlooked in terms of what we can do the next. I'm not going to say. But like you said, they don't have that and we do. And I'd love to give it to them, but they're not ready. So just these little things we do here, I think, are really, really, really powerful. And I appreciate the invite.
Thank you so much for
Thank
saying yes
you.
for this to this random chick that was just like, "Hey, girl."
I
appreciate you.
I am a professional yapper, so don't don't tempt me
You
too
and
much.
M-Pad both. You and M-Pad both. M-Pad loves to yap.
I do.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Yes. All right, M-Pad, why don't you read us out of here, girlfriend?
All right. That's a wrap, but the movement marches on. Black Behind the Chair isn't just a show, it's a statement. We're M-Pad and
Peppermint Petty, joined by Lindsay Leans Left.
challenging you to be your most authentic, unfiltered self, both in the salon and beyond. Keep shaking the table and breaking the mold. Until next time, power to the curl.
Cheers.
Cheers.